1 year after her unannounced visit to a women's prison in northern England, a quiet and deeply personal gesture by Catherine, Princess of Wales, has come to light, revealing a sustained commitment that extended far beyond the publicized engagement of the day. At the time of her visit, the princess met privately with inmates, staff, and support workers at the facility, focusing on early childhood development, maternal bonding, and the emotional well-being of incarcerated mothers and their children. The visit was described as thoughtful and low-key, with no major speeches or sweeping announcements. It appeared to be one of many engagements undertaken as part of her long-standing advocacy for early years development. But what was not publicly disclosed then, and has only now been revealed through those familiar with the initiative, is that following her visit, the princess arranged for a year-long support program for mothers and babies within the prison, quietly funded and coordinated through her charitable network. The gesture, described by prison officials as transformative, centered on expanding access to trauma-informed parenting workshops, baby sensory resources, and dedicated family bonding spaces. It also included specialized training for prison staff to better understand attachment theory and the developmental needs of infants living in custodial settings. Unlike many royal initiatives that are accompanied by official statements and formal launches, this effort was intentionally kept private. According to individuals close to the project, the princess believed the focus should remain entirely on the women and children, rather than on public recognition. A visit that sparked lasting change. When Kate Middleton arrived at the prison 1 year ago, her schedule listed the visit as part of her broader work on early childhood development. She spent several hours inside the mother and baby unit, speaking directly with women serving sentences while caring for infants under 18 months old. Observers recall that she asked detailed questions about daily routines, emotional support systems, and the challenges of maintaining maternal identity within a custodial environment. She listened to stories of separation anxiety, postnatal depression, and the stigma faced by incarcerated mothers. Those present say she was particularly moved by conversations about intergenerational trauma, how cycles of poverty, abuse, and instability often precede incarceration. The princess has long spoken about the importance of early intervention in childhood to break such cycles, and the visit appeared to deepen her understanding of how those principles apply within the justice system. In the weeks following the visit, discussions reportedly began between her office, prison administrators, and child development specialists. The goal was not to create a headline-grabbing initiative, but to address practical gaps identified during her time at the facility. Expanding the mother and baby unit. One of the first changes implemented was the refurbishment of a small communal room within the mother and baby unit. Previously used primarily for supervised visits, the room was redesigned into a calm, sensory-friendly bonding space. Soft furnishings, age-appropriate toys, books, and developmental play equipment were introduced. Specialists in infant psychology contributed to the layout, ensuring that the space supported secure attachment behaviors. Simple additions, comfortable floor mats, muted lighting, and accessible storage for learning materials created an environment that felt less institutional and more nurturing. Alongside the physical upgrades came structured weekly workshops for incarcerated mothers. These sessions focused on responsive parenting, understanding infant cues, emotional regulation, and building resilience. Importantly, the workshops were delivered in a non-judgmental format, acknowledging the complex histories many of the women carry. Prison staff underwent complementary training to reinforce the approach. Officers and support workers were guided on how to interact with mothers and infants in ways that prioritize safety while maintaining empathy and developmental awareness. A spokesperson for the prison described the initiative as subtle but powerful, noting that improvements in mother-infant interaction were observed within months. A focus on dignity and privacy. Those involved emphasized that the princess did not seek personal credit. The program was implemented without branding, naming rights, or public association. Funding was directed discreetly, and communications were deliberately minimal. This approach reflects a broader pattern in her work. Throughout her public life, Kate Middleton has consistently emphasized listening over speaking, consultation over declaration. Her early years campaign has often highlighted scientific research, expert collaboration, and lived experience rather than personality-driven advocacy. In this case, that philosophy appears to have guided her decision to let the initiative unfold quietly. For the women involved, many of whom face intense public scrutiny and personal shame, the absence of publicity was meaningful. One participant reportedly said that knowing someone on the outside cared enough to follow through, without seeking attention, restored a sense of dignity she had not felt in years. Impact on the children. Infants residing in prison mother and baby units represent a particularly vulnerable population. While the presence of the mother offers stability, the custodial environment presents unique developmental challenges. Limited access to varied sensory experiences, restricted movement, and emotional stress can all influence early brain development. By expanding sensory play opportunities and enhancing maternal support, the year-long program sought to mitigate those risks. Child development specialists working with the unit observed increased engagement during play sessions and stronger eye contact between mothers and babies. While it is too early for long-term outcome data, staff report improvements in maternal confidence and emotional attunement. Mothers who previously described feeling overwhelmed began participating more actively in daily developmental activities. The princess's long-standing interest in the science of early childhood, including the neurological foundations of attachment, appears to have directly shaped the program's design. Rather than focusing solely on material donations, the initiative targeted relational health. Broader context of her advocacy. For over a decade, Kate Middleton has made early childhood development a central pillar of her public work. Through forums, research initiatives, and collaborative projects, she has consistently argued that the earliest years of life lay the foundation for mental health, educational attainment, and social outcomes. Her visit to the women's prison represented an extension of that framework into a less visible corner of society. Incarcerated mothers and their children rarely occupy the center of public policy debates about early years development. By choosing to engage directly with this group and then quietly supporting them over an extended period, the princess underscored her belief that early childhood matters in every context, including those often overlooked. Observers note that this sustained involvement contrasts with more symbolic forms of advocacy. Rather than limiting her role to awareness raising, she appears to have sought structural improvement within a specific institution. Reactions from justice and charity sectors. Although the initiative was not publicly announced, its existence has become known within professional circles over the past year. Representatives from child welfare organizations have praised the integrated approach, particularly the combination of environmental upgrades and staff training. Justice reform advocates have also welcomed the attention directed toward mother and baby units, which face capacity pressures and funding limitations nationwide. Some suggest that the success of the program could serve as a model for similar facilities. Within the prison itself, morale reportedly improved as staff saw tangible investment in their work. Officers who initially expressed skepticism about additional training later described the sessions as practical and affirming. The program's measured rollout allowed for adaptation based on feedback. Adjustments were made to workshop schedules, toy selections, and session formats in response to participant input. This iterative approach further reflected the princess's preference for consultation and evidence-based practice. Personal connections and quiet moments. Those present during the original visit recall several moments that may have influenced the princess's decision to extend support. One involved a young mother expressing fear that her baby would one day resent her for being born in prison. Another described the difficulty of celebrating milestones, first steps, first words, within a custodial setting. The princess reportedly spent time holding infants, speaking softly with mothers, and asking how they envisioned life after release. These interactions appear to have left a lasting impression. A year later, some of the same women have since been released, transitioning back into the community with their children. Support workers say the parenting workshops provided tools that continue to benefit them beyond the prison walls. For those still serving sentences, the improved facilities remain a daily reminder that their role as mothers is recognized and valued. A model of low-key leadership. Royal engagements often attract significant media coverage. In this instance, however, The most consequential aspect of the visit unfolded quietly and away from public view. The revelation of the year-long initiative has prompted renewed discussion about the nature of modern royal influence. Rather than issuing directives or championing legislative reform, the princess's intervention operated through partnership and sustained attention. Analysts suggest that this model, small-scale, focused, and collaborative, may represent a shift toward impact-driven rather than headline-driven engagement. For the women and children involved, the results are concrete. A warmer room, informed caregivers, structured support, and a sense that their circumstances have not rendered them invisible. Looking ahead. As the year-long program concludes its initial phase, discussions are reportedly underway about its continuation and potential expansion. Evaluations conducted by participating specialists will inform next steps. While there is no indication that the princess plans to publicly address the initiative, those close to the project suggest she remains interested in its outcomes. In the broader landscape of her work, the gesture aligns seamlessly with her emphasis on early intervention and relational health. It also highlights an often unseen dimension of royal engagement, the capacity to influence quietly, without fanfare. For one women's prison, and for the mothers and babies within it, that quiet influence has translated into meaningful change. 1 year after her visit, what began as a few hours of conversation inside secure walls has evolved into a sustained effort to nurture some of society's most vulnerable children at the very start of their lives.